Now let's work with the code editor. We'll first start with C# and look at the features that you have in C# for working with code editing and any productivity enhancements with managing your code. Then we'll switch over to Visual Basic and experiment with some of the options that you have in Visual Basic. Let's begin with code revision marks. Right-click on your project and select Add Class. Let's go ahead and give it a name. We'll call it Person. CS is the extension for a C# file. Select Add. This will pop us into the code editor for the class. If you notice, if I start typing inside the class, look what happens right next to the line numbers. I see a yellow indicator. This yellow indicator lets me know that any changes that I have made so far have not yet been saved to file. By selecting the Save button, the indicator turns green. This indicator serves as a way of managing any changes that I've made but not yet compiled. Anything that's yellow is not persisted to disk. Anything that I see in green has been saved yet not compiled. Let's use the class view to add a few properties. Select View, Class View. You'll see your class view in your right-hand side of your screen. By expanding this, you can see all the different objects that you have available inside your class. As you can see, we have our person class that we've just added. By right-clicking on this, I can choose to see View Class Diagram. From your class diagram, let's add a few properties. Let's add age, and we'll set that to be an integer, and let's add last name. And we'll set this to be a string. Let's save our changes and look inside the class view. We can see now we have a property that allows us to get and set an age as well as get and set a last name. Now what happens if I write a lot of code that leverages this age property? Let's say I do some calculations from another class. Let's say I have other elements of code calling this age property to get the age of the current person. Let's say my requirements change and I need to change this property to be something else. In previous editions of Visual Studio, I would have to do a find and replace. Considering age, AGE, is often repeated in various bits and pieces of words and code, it wouldn't be quite thorough if I did a global find and replace without actually looking at what was being replaced. This is no longer the case with Visual Studio 2005 and 2008. We've introduced a concept called refactoring. If you right-click on age, you'll see that you have an option to refactor. Refactoring means changing the signature of this particular property, method, or event. In this case, I'm going to rename it. Instead of age, let's say I want to do years alive. Instead of doing a global find and replace, this will actually look for elements of code that are specifically referencing this property, not just replacing the words. By default, it will look only in the code, but if I want, I can have it look in my comments or any variables as well. I can select OK, and Visual Studio will allow me to preview the changes that it's about to make. Anything that's going to be replaced will be listed in this task list up here, and Visual Studio also provides me with a code window to actually preview the changes directly into the code. It will highlight any element that it's looking to replace. This way I can have specific control over what's being replaced without accidentally making errors by changing a sequence of letters rather than an actual method signature. Select Apply to make the change. Our project is quite simple, but you can imagine how much time and efficiency this would save by using it with a lot of data and a lot of code. You can also rename your settings from the class diagram. Let's say I want to return this back to age. Right within your class details, you can actually modify this behavior and refactoring will automatically occur. One way to add a property is through this class diagram from the class details option. Another way is to do it directly within your code editor. If I scroll down inside my class, I can right-click, say Insert Snippet, and scroll down to Visual C# and select the prop, which allows me to create a property setting. Notice it'll highlight my property and int, both as the name and data type, as options for me to customize and replace my property. Let's go ahead and delete this.